right, let's go ahead and get started this morning. Got a lot to cover today. Over the last few months, we've been looking at the millennial generation. We've talked about its characteristics and what research shows that churches need to think about as they seek to minister to the largest generation in American history. Today, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to look at how millennials interact with and use technology. Today's class is geared mostly towards parents, but these things that we're going to talk about I think are good for everyone to be aware of. I'm standing up here this morning because Scott has been kind enough to video record this class session. We'll put it up on YouTube. If you want to go back and watch it or share it with your friends and family, have that option to do that. So let me begin by saying that I also do understand that there may be times when I need to slow down a little bit. When I assume that you understand the terminology I'm using, but that I really do need to explain what I'm talking about. So if that happens, please do feel free to stop me and ask whatever questions that you have. Technology, quite honestly, amazes me to no end. My mind is blown when I think about how far we've come and how much we're able to do. I remember when I was younger watching Star Trek: The Next Generation. Some of you guys may have seen this. Scott was really excited when he saw the first slide that I had up here. But I mean, they had such amazing gadgets. I mean, I remember they had those communicators, and it would let them talk to anyone just by saying who they wanted to talk to. You know, they had these little flat electronic pads that essentially replaced paper. They could read books or reports or whatever they wanted to on there, look up all sorts of information, all from that little device. The computer that they had could tell them virtually anything that they wanted to know. Now, we haven't got the teleporters yet, but we've gotten a lot of the other things. I can tell my phone who I want to talk to, and it calls them. I've got a tablet that has replaced books and paper documents. It doesn't talk to me yet, but Google and Yahoo can answer just about any questions that I have in a matter of seconds. You know, I can sit in my office in Athens, Alabama, and video chat with someone in India who's working with churches over there, and I can do it for free. I can see a live picture of him, and he can see a live picture of me, and we can do that. We can talk face to face without boarding a ship or an airplane. To me, that's quite amazing. If you have even the most basic cell phone, you should know that what you hold in your hand has more computing power than the rocket that took us to the moon. I can look up a picture of my own house, if I wanted to, that was taken from a satellite orbiting the Earth. And the picture is probably going to have fairly good detail of it, thanks to Google. Today's technology will blow your mind if you really sit down and think about it. It's enabled people all over the world to be more connected, to be smarter, to be more efficient than ever before in the history of man. But as great as technology is, it can also be used for less than noble purposes. I suppose the problem is that millennials understand technology, and in many cases better than their parents and grandparents. You know, we've grown up with changing technology to a greater extent than any other generation. We've had to adapt to new things all our lives, and so we've gotten good at mastering the latest devices that come out. Remember when I was in elementary school, we started out with this game right here. Does anybody know what this game is? Heard somebody say it. The Oregon Trail, right? On those big floppy disks that actually were floppy. Put it in the computer, and you got to see if you and your family could make it to Oregon. Like to put in your friends' names, and usually a few of them would die along the way, and then you could write something goofy on their tombstone. We progressed from that to this game right here. You may know what this is. This is Sonic the Hedgehog. It was pretty popular. I remember Sega Genesis, Sega Game Gear. I remember when Game Gear came out. That was really cool because it had a color screen. And then today we've got this right here. Does anybody know what this is? This pretty much. Does anybody know what game this is? What was that, Cassie? Call of Duty, right? This is World War II, I'm guessing either France or Germany. You can tell a big difference between this and this, as far as graphics and things like that. Also, there's a big difference in how they're played, the consoles, the devices that are used to play them on. And so, as the millennial generation has gone from the Oregon Trail to Call of Duty, we've gotten used, even just with our entertainment, to adapting and learning how to do and use new things. I say that to say this. As we talk about how to keep your kids safe and out of trouble in today's technological world, we need to go ahead and admit that they may always know more about this stuff than you do. I don't mean to imply that you're all ignorant and old or anything like that. But I think most of you know that your children are ahead of you a lot of the times. And when I ask your kids about it, they say that they are too. So today I'm going to try to make sure that you're aware of some of the issues out there and also give you some pointers about how to address those issues with your teenagers. When we talk about the dangers presented by technology and especially the internet, pornography has definitely got to be at the top of the list. Obviously, this is something that tempts guys far more than it tempts girls. Guys are visually stimulated, and so it makes sense that pictures that they can find easily and erase just as easily are going to be difficult for them to say no to. The first thing that we need to understand about pornography is that there's a lot of it out there and a lot of people who use it. This is according to Family Safe Media. There were 4.2 million pornographic websites in 2006. That's 12% of all websites on the internet. There are 68 million daily pornographic search engine requests. That's 25% of all web searches. That's where someone goes to Google or Yahoo and searches for whatever kind of pornography they're looking for. There are 1.5 billion pornographic downloads each month. That's 35% of all downloads. There are 73 million visitors to pornographic websites each month. This one may be surprising. The average age of first exposure to pornographic images is 11 years old. 80% of teenagers ages 15 to 17 have had multiple what they call hardcore exposures. So that's not just pictures of scantily clad women, that's graphic pictures of intercourse, and that's 80% of them. 90% of 8 to 16-year-olds have viewed online pornography, most of them while doing homework. This one's a little bit surprising too. Revenue from the pornography industry, and this includes video rentals, internet, pay-per-view, even dance clubs and magazines. The revenue from the pornography industry is greater than the revenues of ABC, NBC, and CBS combined. They totaled $13.33 billion in 2006. The bottom line is that it's out there, and obviously people are looking at it. Of course, while these statistics may be somewhat shocking, I doubt that you're very surprised by them because we live in a culture that's saturated with sex. Sometimes it's subtle, sometimes it's not. Now, on a side note, I think that means that churches need to actually start talking more about sex so that we can put it in its proper God-designed place. We can't just ignore the subject. We've got to talk about how it relates to what we're talking about today, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. So you know that pornography is a problem, but what do you do about it as a parent? And there are a few very simple, very practical things that you can do to make it less likely that your teen's going to pull up pornographic sites on your home computer. First thing is keep your computers in a room that a lot of people walk through. It's pretty simple. I mean, your child's probably not going to be looking up porn if he thinks that you might walk by the computer on the way to the laundry room. Another thing, don't let your child have a laptop or at least use the laptop in their own room. If they can take the computer away from everyone else, the temptation is greater. Basically, what you're wanting to do is make sure that the computer use takes place in a location where you can observe what's on the screen. There we go. Check the browser history and cookies. Some of you guys may not know what cookies are. I don't completely understand it myself, but I do know that it kind of keeps a log of everything that's done on the web. Checking the browser history is fairly simple. Checking the cookies is a bit more complex. Your teenager probably knows how to clear the browser history, and they even know how to clear the cookies after looking at inappropriate websites. So that's a good thing to check, but may not necessarily be foolproof. So those are good first steps, but there's still other options out there that are available to you. There are a number of good, reliable software programs that you can install on your computer. And there are basically two kinds. There's the ones that totally block inappropriate sites, and there are those that will report any inappropriate sites that are looked up. XXXchurch.com is probably the most popular, at least among churches. When you go to the website, there's a tab at the top that says Parents. It'll take you to this page right here. And then you can see at the bottom there are a couple options, X3 Watch and Safe Eyes Internet Filter. X3 Watch is one of those programs that reports whatever's used on the computer. It sends it to you via email each month. You can choose the intervals, weekly, monthly, etc., and it lists any sites it thinks are questionable. And this is not just something that parents can use. The point is that the person struggling with pornography picks an accountability partner. That's really the way it's designed. The partner is the one who gets the emails. I've been an accountability partner for a few people. I get those reports, and they're very thorough. In fact, sometimes I'm surprised with the sites it finds questionable. But it's not going to send you a list of hundreds of sites to go through at the same time. It's thorough but also concise. The idea is that someone's going to be less likely to look at porn if he knows a buddy or a parent is going to know the exact site that they've been looking at. Unfortunately, this can be turned off, but the program does include that in the report. It tells you if the user turns off the program. There's also a site filtering program that will keep inappropriate sites from loading altogether. It'll keep them off. You can tell it how strict you want it to be. It'll block sites accordingly. And so this Safe Eyes Internet Filter gives you more control. It keeps your teens from even seeing the pornographic images. XXXchurch.com it also has a lot of great information and resources out there. Some of their services are free. I know the X3 Watch is with a certain number of computers. I'm not sure about the internet filter. If it does cost any money, it wouldn't be very much. And it's not just for teenagers either. I mean, they also have ways to help people who are recovering from pornography addiction, and that includes a lot of adults. But again, there are a ton of resources, questions and answers, blogs, tips for parents about how to talk to your teenagers about this. And again, that website is xxxchurch.com. Now, XXX Church is not the only site like this. There are many other programs and software, but like I said, in the ministry world, this is the one that gets recommended the most, and I highly recommend it as well. All right, so you put your computer in an open area where you can see it. You install a site blocker program so that nothing bad comes up on your computer. That's solved any problems that you might have, right? Who knows how that thinking is flawed? What are we missing with this? I mean, you got the computer locked down, right? There you go. These are some of the more popular devices that folks have. If your child has an iPod Touch, like this one right here, an iPhone, an iPad, a PSP, a Nook, or a lot of other smartphones, a BlackBerry, they don't have to get on your home computer to view inappropriate material. I mean, just about any smartphone, even some of these gaming consoles, have access to the internet. They've got web browsers on them. And a lot of teens have at least one of these devices. It may not be a very popular thing for me to say this. You may not appreciate it. I know the teenagers won't appreciate it, but I'm not sure it's a great idea for a teen to have the internet on their phones. The risk in my mind may outweigh the benefits. I know, like I said, the teens won't like me saying that, and there are some good benefits to it, but my experience has taught me that the temptation with that is pretty great. So I'm going to talk about iPhones mostly because that's what I have, that's what I know. A lot of the things will also be applicable to other smartphones, especially Android-based phones. XXX Church does have an app in the Apple App Store. You can put it on your child's phone. It'll do the same thing that your computer program does, but there's a very significant limitation. The 3X Church app, for it to work, basically it provides your cell phone with its own web browser. It's their web browser. Is everybody with me on that? In other words, you have to use their program to go on the internet. Anything that's looked at through their program will either be blocked or reported. If you use Safari or any other number of free web browsers out there, it doesn't get reported. So you put the app on the iPhone or the iPad or whatever, there's still a way around it. The only way to make sure that nothing is looked up on the phone would be to completely lock out your kid from downloading more apps, lock out or lock out Safari, so that the only option they have is to use that web browser. That, I'm sure, will go over very well with them. They like downloading apps, and so that might be a little bit of a battle. But like I said, that is really, as far as the iPhone goes, the only way to make completely sure that they don't use it to look up stuff that they shouldn't. I would assume that this would be similar to Android-based phones. I'm not completely sure. I know Google's got a lot of apps out there, and I'm sure that there are apps out there that will help with that. And XXX Church is not the only safe app that you can have. In fact, even on the iPhone, I think there are certain parental controls that lets you set things like that. But again, I guess the point that I'm saying is that you can make it more difficult for your teens to look up pornography, but there are a lot of ways around all those hurdles. And my guess is that they'll be better at getting around those hurdles than a lot of times you are at putting them up. That's just me being truthful. Yes. Mm-hmm. 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 That's true. That's very true. Very. Mm-hmm.
These are the guys who have some kind of innocent name that are third parties, and it has nothing to do with who you're visiting, but they come in and they hide in your closet, and when you open the door to go get your clothes the next morning, they jump out. Already here they are. And I don't know the program anywhere that stops those.
Yeah, and that's one of the other things is as far as a lot of the pornographic websites and stuff have these add-ons and these Trojan horses and things like that infect the computer, can really put some nasty stuff in there. Also, some programs that'll send personal information back to somebody, whether it's credit card information or anything like that. So really, it's more than just the issue of your kids looking up stuff that they shouldn't be looking up. It's also an issue of your security as well. Any other questions or comments what we talked about so far? I'm guessing that there may be some folks here today who think, my son would never have that problem. Forget the statistics for just a minute. My experience as a youth minister and before that as a youth intern has taught me that far more young men struggle with this than don't. Chances are greater that your son is going to struggle with this than the chances are that he won't. So don't assume that you've got a good kid and so you don't need to worry. Frankly, this may be the most common struggle among those good kids. They don't drink, they don't smoke, they don't have sex, but they may look at pornography because, frankly, nobody knows about it. It's something that they can get away with in the privacy of their own rooms. So, basically, I just said that your child has probably at the very least, looked at pornography. That's what the statistics say before. And I've also told you that he's probably better at hiding it than you are at finding it. So, there's your encouragement for the day. Look, all the things we just talked about are helpful, and I don't mean to discourage the use of any of the methods that I just described. If nothing else, it introduces accountability into the situation. More than that, though, it will hopefully give you an opportunity to have a conversation. And I believe having a conversation is the most important thing a parent can do to help their child deal with this immense temptation. And when Todd Lloyd spoke here during the summer series, he talked about millennials. He didn't call them that. He didn't use that word. But he said that they don't respond well to hearing rules unless they also hear about the consequences. They'll obey the rules, but they want to know why the rules are there. They want explanations. And the Rainers also found this to be true in their research. You don't hear this said a lot, so I guess I'll be the one to go ahead and say it. I believe churches need to talk more about sex. Churches hardly ever talk about it, and when they do, it's very vague. Now, obviously, our young people are learning about sex. I'm sure they've got the health classes in high school, but they're also learning a distorted view of it from what they see online. And if we don't do a better job of correcting those distortions, then what they see on the internet will be all that they know. And so we've got to replace those pictures with the picture that God paints if we ever hope for them to have a healthy understanding of sex. Now, with that in mind, the best suggestion that I can give to you when helping your children avoid pornography is to teach them, talk to them about the dangers of it. My face is probably about to get really red when we start getting into some of this stuff, but we're all adults here, and so we're going to talk about some of those dangers in a little bit of detail. This is from a guy named John McKee on one reason to avoid pornography. Maybe. Hopefully you can see this. He says, impotence. Am I being over dramatic? You decide, because research is emerging on this topic as I type, something that wasn't addressed even 10 years ago. The fact is impotence is on the rise, and many men are not satisfied with their sexual partner. I'd love to say spouse, but unfortunately for many it's just sexual partner, because they're truly becoming addicted to the never-ending stream of dopamine spikes they get from watching different girls do different things at the click of a button. The more porn they watch, the more difficult it is to become turned on. This is becoming a huge problem with young men. Psychology Today explains desperate young men from various cultures with different levels of education, religiosity, attitudes, values, diets, marijuana use, and personalities are seeking help. They have only two things in common: heavy use of today's internet porn and an increasing need for more extreme material. But porn was available when I was a kid, right? Wasn't too much Playboy hurt sexual performance in the same way. Not even close. The static images of Playboy can't compete with the readily available high-speed connection to the biggest databases of porn in the world, the World Wide Web. Men are literally numbing their brains' normal response to pleasure, and they can't get it up for their sexual partner anymore. That's scary, and my wife is way too hot to start losing my desire for her. Call me over the top, criticize me for being too explicit, if you will, but I don't want to fail in the bedroom because of an affair with virtual women on the screens in my house. Impotence is a natural consequence that I'd rather avoid. I think most teenagers would agree. Bet you didn't think you were going to hear that when you came today. You may laugh when I say this, but if you want your teenage son to stay away from pornography, tell him it can make him impotent. trust me, as much as they may want to look at porn, they want to be able to please their wives more. I would almost guarantee you that telling them this will go a lot further than saying it's wrong, you shouldn't do it. There are several things in his statement here that maybe we should look at a little bit more closely. Pornography does desensitize you to porn and also to real people. Dopamine is a very powerful chemical, and he talks about that in his statement. And porn becomes an addiction because of it. It overflows the brain with dopamine because you're so excited about what you're looking at. But just like a lot of other drugs, over time it takes more and more dopamine to get that same feeling. So people look at worse and worse pornographic images, and eventually the dopamine release when you're with an actual person is less than when you're looking at porn. And so that's where the impotence comes in. Sometimes the people in the videos are somewhat unrealistic, and the pictures, they're unrealistic. It may be difficult to find someone as pretty as the folks you find online because they've got makeup artists, they can airbrush photos, and so young men may set themselves up for disappointment. It's fake beauty because it can't be found in the real world because it's manufactured. It's just not natural. It's uncomfortable for me to stand up here and talk to you about this, and I'm sure it's uncomfortable for you to talk about these things with your children as well. I've read numerous articles explaining in great scientific detail about how the chemical processes work, and others that talk about the more practical side and consequences of abandoning God's intended purpose for sex. So if this is a conversation that you feel like you need to have with your teen, I'd be happy to send you some of those links to those articles. You can just let me know, and I'll be happy to send those to you. Explaining why pornography is dangerous and the effects that it can have on a person is, in my humble opinion, the best way to help your teenager avoid it. The truth is that Christian teens who are looking at the Christian teens who are looking at pornography on a regular basis, they typically want to stop. They know that they shouldn't be doing it, but they just can't seem to stop for some reason. And so while they may not be comfortable talking with their parents about it, they usually are relieved when they realize that they can talk to someone about these issues and have someone help them overcome the struggle. And so I'm not saying it'll be an easy conversation, but I would like to encourage you all to think about having this conversation with your children when you think they're ready. Questions and comments about this before we move on? Yeah, and you know, like I said, I mean, they're going to get a concept of this from somewhere. Either what they see online, what they hear from their buddies at school, or from their parents from the churches. And if they hear it from their parents or the churches, it's going to be God's intention, not the way the world's trying to distort it. Mitch?
Some of the things that I've heard in counseling, at least I'm not having an affair. What the spouse says, though, you know how it makes me feel to be laying in bed ready for you to come and share that experience with me, and you're on your bed. It's like, well, what's wrong with me? And the church is a place to communicate that to husbands, and it's okay for men and women to hug and kiss. I think sometimes they say, you don't need to do this, you're married and stuff. Well, we have a license to do that.
Okay.
We need to be letting people know that it's okay. God said it's okay.
Okay.
The Bible speaks of affection in both instances too. What Mitch is talking about. What we lose in marriage is the first thing to go in marriage is typically is affection. We lose the day-to-day contact of letting each other know we care, and then the intimacy with God. But the first thing is affection. If we lose that affection, if our children are raised in an atmosphere where they cannot see normal, natural affection, then we're going to lose the other. If our children don't see that, they are only a product of what they have seen and experienced in their childhood, just like we are. And if we don't make that experience positive for them, how do we expect them to be married for the rest of their life?
Okay. Monica?
I know of a recent incident at school where in the seventh grade girls' Bible class, they have a whole unit on sex, and they have a nurse that comes in and talks to the girls. And there was a problem because a parent complained that they didn't want the Bible teacher to have that conversation with their child. If you wait till seventh grade, you're way behind the ball game, okay? So if a parent, if you feel very strongly about that message that you share with your child one-on-one, you need to start a lot sooner than seventh grade. Don't wait till then because they've already heard it, seen it, read it, and talked about it with a lot of other people. So I was really shocked that this parent was so upset and went to school and, made a big deal about it. But, the reality is, you've got to have that conversation as a parent much earlier than seventh grade.
Yeah. Yeah, Penny.
I taught over at Madison Academy, taught third grade, and one day at lunch, my third grade boys were all huddled together talking, and I would sit with boys one day and girls another, and they were talking, and they said, "You ask her, no, you ask her, no, you ask her." I said, "Guys, did you ever think that if you can't ask me something, maybe you shouldn't be talking about it at all?" And they said, "Well, Billy knows how to spell it." So they flat asked me. Now, those boys are 8 years old. I'm just saying this to reiterate the fact that it is never too early. And I told them, I said, that word, the F word, I said, that word represents something that's very beautiful and wonderful in God's world. But you're going to hear it at the locker room. And that word you do not want to use. I said, you need to go home and ask your dads. And if your dad doesn't want to talk about it, then you ask Coach. Then I told the principal, and she said, the coach is going to kill you. They needed to know. They were sitting there they had heard it somewhere. And we need to be able to approach it from a Christian point of view. My brother is a counselor in Atlanta, and he said by far the largest number of clients he has now outside of family problems are ministers and preachers who have an addiction to pornography. Now that's so sad because they can do it and no one knows.
Yeah. And I think,
It is
yeah,
an addiction.
yeah, yeah.
Our churches will, I think we tend to treat the symptom, not the problem. By that I mean, we don't want to talk about this when it's the most critical part of Christianity in our lives. If we have unholy marriages, we're going to hell and it don't matter. We can sit here all day long and it does not matter if our marriages are unholy. You can take 1 Corinthians 7 and go through that and it will show you. I've told
Larry?
Even if it's films of real sex, it's unaccessible except through the computer. There's a more pernicious form of pornography that's going around with our young kids and teenagers, and that's sexting.
Where,
Because
yeah,
that is accessible.
yeah.
Their peers, someone that they go to school with, who are sending pornographic images to them.
We'll go ahead and move on. That's the last thing we're going to talk about there in just a second. There are a few other sites that I want to talk about fairly quickly. I've had parents ask me about Skype. Skype is a video chat and calling service. It's free if you're talking to someone else over the internet. You can also use it to actually call real phones for people in the United States or overseas. I use it to talk to people in India and Ghana. Obviously, it could be used for bad things as well. The trend today seems, as Larry was saying, to not only for the teens to view pornography, but in some ways to kind of make their own. Looking at pornography online is more of an issue with the guys. Video chats and sexting and things like that is where the girls get more involved. Let's see. Teenagers, like I said, it's usually the girls more. They'll take pictures of themselves. They'll expose themselves over video chat. I guess you could call it virtual sex or cyber sex. If you remember, Brett Favre got in trouble over doing this here recently. There have been a few other folks who've gotten in trouble. The thing to remember about Skype is that you generally have to know somebody to be able to connect with them. It's kind of like Facebook. You have to confirm that they're your friend before you can call them. That means that if your teen is on Skype, they're not going to probably be chatting with people they don't know unless they either initiate the contact or accept contact that's been initiated by someone else. So the bottom line, I would say, is don't flip out if you find Skype on the computer, but do keep up with who's on the friend list and monitor your children while they're using it. Now, there's another service out there that you should absolutely panic if you find, and that's called Chat Roulette. I've never been on this service, so most of my knowledge comes from Jon Stewart and a few news articles. Apparently no Daily Show fans in here. Jon Stewart's a late-night comedian, by the way. Chat Roulette, it's a video chat. It connects random people to other random people, and that's where it gets the name Chat Roulette. Apparently, it's people, usually more often guys, who are looking to expose themselves to strangers and have strangers expose themselves to them. It's completely random. It sets you up with people you don't know and probably will never see again, so it's also anonymous. Of course, the terms of use say that you should be 18 or older, but they've got no real way of checking that out. This is a website. It's not a program that would be installed on your computer, so if you ever see this site in the internet history, it's definitely something to confront your kids about. As I said, teens seem more willing to kind of make their own porn by taking and sending images of themselves to usually their boyfriends or their girlfriends. They call it sexting. There we go. Several celebrities have had scandals involving this. It's not something that you've got to have a lot of technology to do. Really, any phone that has a camera on it can be used for this. Probably it's girls sending pictures more often to guys than the guys do. Of course, all sexting doesn't necessarily involve pictures. It can be explicit text messages that are typed out. This is kind of the new equivalent of calling a phone sex line, I guess you could say. And a surprising number of young people do this. Again, don't assume that your child's too good to make this mistake. They probably are, but you still need to help them you still need to help make it easier for them to stay away from it. The best thing that you can do, I would say, and there's really no programs to check this, the best thing that you can do if you want to check this out is to look at their text messages. They'll say it's an invasion of privacy, and it probably is, but that's the only way to know for sure. Yeah. I'm sure it'll be a grand fight. But as Donna said, you're the parent, right? What's that? Larry. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The other thing about it is, all I have to do is delete it. And you as a parent will never know that the girl across town or the girl next door is the one that's doing this. And it almost always leads to getting together.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, well, I'll say this. I've heard of, some kids won't actually go so far as to getting together, but they'll send pictures of themselves instead. A lot of times it does lead to getting together, but not necessarily always. Even if they delete it, though, an obvious consequence, especially to talk to the girls about, is that the pictures don't necessarily ever go away. I mean, they're always there, and they can be sent to other people than the one or the ones that they were initially sent to. This seems to be more of a problem, like we said, with girls sending suggestive pictures to their boyfriends, but there's also a serious problem for boyfriends in these cases. This may not be something you've thought about before. This guy's named Philip. Philip turned 18. His girlfriend was 16. She sent him a picture of herself nude. They had a fight, and so to get even with her, he decided he would send that picture. Got just a few more minutes. He would send that picture to her friends and relatives. Obviously, she was upset. He called it revenge. Do you know what the state of Florida called it? Distribution of child pornography. Sexting is something that we don't have laws about yet. In fact, most states would call it the same thing. 1 in 5, this article says, 1 in 5 teenagers do the sexting, even though here it is. Even though the majority know that it could be a crime. This is something that I think probably a lot of teens don't think about. Maybe a lot of parents don't think about, but this guy named Philip, he's now on the sex offender list. He's a registered sex offender for sending a picture of his girlfriend. For the rest of his natural life. His lawyer's working to get him off the list, but I doubt he'll have very much luck. Appreciate you guys being here. If you guys have any questions, feel free to let me know. We'll pick things up next week.